So happy to connect with you, and I'm really excited about this topic. If you haven't met me yet, I'm Amanda Helen, and this is my channel, Science and Magic. I love to approach my life with a little bit of science, a little bit of magic, a little bit of the unknown, and then everything in between. So today I want to talk about the potency of shadows, the harvest that can come from paying attention to the things that aren't pleasant to feel. Before we do that, please give this video a like, especially if you follow my work and it offers value to you. It helps me out so much, and it's something simple that you can do. Feel free to say hi in the chat. Feel free to say hi in the comments. I have so much fun coming on and doing this. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in. I find that in the self-development world, there's often a focus on kind of the love and the light and the high vibrations only, um, no negativity, that sort of thing. And I understand this because it is really important what we focus on and what we think about. And there is a level of creativity that comes with that, like what we're thinking about and what we feel and what we say and the people we allow in our lives, they have a great effect on what we're manifesting from our lives, both with embodiment and with neural wiring, neuroplasticity. But I think there's often too much of a slant towards this. And what I find within myself and my clients is that they can start to feel guilty or bad or like something is wrong if they're having an off day, or if they're feeling fear, or if they're feeling anger, or if they're feeling jealousy. So it's like we're full spectrum humans and we have emotions from here. And okay, I'm not going to call these emotions negative because that puts a judgment on them, right? So I'm going to take away the terms negative emotions and positive emotions. Creates too much of a black or white situation here. And I'm instead going to call them unpleasant emotions and pleasant emotions because it is unpleasant to feel anger and fear and jealousy and grief and all of these things, right? And it's pleasant to feel gratitude and love and appreciation. So we're full spectrum humans. Like we have this level of feeling on one side all the way to this level. So to label it as bad if we're down here creates an extra set of energy, an extra set of judgment. And then there's a fear that starts to happen with, okay, so now I'm feeling these things, I'm going to create more of it. And then there's a spiraling effect because you're scared that you're feeling this thing. So you try to shove it down and then you're going to feel more of it. And what I say to my clients is really, this is like wanting to experience only summers in your life and no winters, or wanting to experience only daylight, only noon, and not midnight. We are cyclical beings, especially if we're in female bodies. And we experience life in cycles. And summer turns to fall, which turns to winter, which turns to spring, which comes back to summer. And there's immense value in feeling all of the things in all of these seasons. Now, do we want to get stuck in a winter and experience winter only? No. Do we want to get stuck in feeling an unpleasant emotion like fear or jealousy? No. So the point is not to focus on that thing, but to feel it, if that makes sense. So we don't want to focus on it and create a ruminating story about it, but we would rather feel into the sensations of that thing and then it alchemizes. So we're going to talk about this today. I have a book. I think I've shared it in another video. It's called The Spiral of Memory and Belonging, and it's by Frank McGowan. Love his writing so much. And I want to read a passage from this, so cozy up. I love reading time. So let me preface this first. He talks about 3 sacred spirals. The first spiral is called a downward spiral. And this is when our life falls apart, when there's a dismemberment. And he's saying, with shamans, spiritual guides, they literally go through a dismemberment of their spirit, where they'll have a dream about their body being dismembered or things falling apart. And in this falling, in this letting go, all sorts of emotions can come up and it can be really scary. Once you hit the bottom, rock bottom, then there's a threshold spiral. And the threshold is where you're not falling anymore, but you're also not doing anything. You're sort of just like integrating. You're just being. You're kind of harvesting what you have gathered from the fall. And the final spiral is the upward spiral. And the upward spiral is where you bring everything that you've harvested in that threshold, everything that you've learned from the fall, and you bring it into life. You bring it into a creation. You bring it towards something. And our society and the self-development world is, I feel, obsessed with the upward spiral of only producing, only sharing the highs and only sharing what's good in their lives. And again, there's merit in this because there is truth to what you focus on comes true, but to ignore that downward spiral or to resist one or to ignore the unpleasant or to ignore the shadows or the dark, they only grow louder. And we're going to talk about why. But this book, this passage I'm about to read is about that downward spiral. It's about the shattering. It's about the life's lows, if you will, and how we don't have a lot of support for these lows in our current society as being sacred. We have support for them as being bad or as being something we need to get out of, but we don't have that spiritual support of these moments are sacred. And we have a lot of support from therapists and counselors, and there's a lot of self-help books and things like that, and that's beautiful, but they're all about how do we get out of this and less about what is this bringing, what is this offering me? And I think we can all think of times when our life just spiraled downward or shattered open. I mean, I've had a few of these in the past couple of years, and a few of these cycles, actually, the downward spiral, the threshold spiral, the upward spiral. And it's a sacred process. So Frank McOwen in this is talking about the downward spiral, and I think it's really beautiful. This space, this time, this state of being is known by many names: the dark night of the soul, the night sea voyage, and the shaman's death. Despite its ancient connotations and mythic roots, such as a phase of upheaval, inner shredding, and change, often feels like it's the first of its kind to the one who's going through it. It is a moment in the life trajectory of the soul when, as poet David Whyte suggests, you must leave everything you know behind. When we fall into the abyss of the psyche, it can feel akin to madness or even death. This process may be activated suddenly, perhaps by being diagnosed with a disease, being laid off from a job, ending a marriage, or taking a walk down what musician Neil Young calls the windy halls of friendship. In some ways, the swift appearance of initiatory change or crisis can be a blessing, as if the spirits have come for us and the changes are out of our hands. Even so, such sudden changes have something of definable edge to them that declares your old world, your old sense of your life is gone forever. Nothing seems solid on the downward spiral. All the rules are different. Nothing is reliable except perhaps the heavy glances of those around us who do not yet understand, who do not themselves feel the stirring energies of change, and who have not yet known their own descent into the shaded domains of the death and rebirth process. It is natural to fear this descent, but when we learn to live mythically, the process comes alive with power. When we learn to live mythically, the process comes alive with power. And again, our society, obsessed with birth, scared to talk about death. And I'm not here to like only focus on death or the night or the shadows. But when you think of birth, the womb space is completely dark. There's no light there. And it's so fertile. The soil underneath the ground, dark, damp, no sunlight. That's where the seed starts to germinate and grow. So I'm curious, if you're tuning in, how this is sitting with you so far. Like, are you someone who avoids your shadows, or what is a shadow to you? Are you someone who feels guilty about feeling quote unquote negative emotion, the unpleasant emotions? Are you scared of these life changes sometimes that hit you and feel like your life's falling apart and it's bad? This is the issues. We put judgments on all of these things. So I want to say that if you're someone who's working on themselves, and if you're following my channel, you probably are because you're in that self-development world and you feel heavy or you're feeling like something's not right because you're experiencing all sorts of wild emotions. You're not in the wrong place. You're not doing anything wrong. You are a human being. And I want to share how I have learned to alchemize these emotions and to gain fruit and harvest from them and to love them in my body, to love them up. Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. The Victorians had a healthy relationship to death and spirituality in the mundane. Exactly. I just started sitting with my grief. Mm. And it's not easy. It's not pleasant, right? But it's part of the human experience. Now, there are some people who only like to exist in the night or the shadows or the dark, and they only like to exist in the unpleasant emotions. And that's an imbalance in that direction because that's just going to create more of that. I'm curious, Rebecca, what grief feels like in your body. If you were to sit with grief, what sensations would you speak out loud when you know that grief is there? Like, what would you feel? And here's the first key to this is, let's say that you're feeling something that's really difficult. The first step is to, well, get support, first of all. I think if you need support, get support from another safe nervous system, from a therapist, from a dear friend who you trust, from a loved one. But get out of the head, out of the story of it, and into direct sensation of that thing that you're feeling. So if a situation's bugging you or you're feeling the overwhelming presence of an emotion, name the emotion. But more than that, drop your attention into your body and then feel where in the body you're noticing. And this will take a practice, like it doesn't always come right away. So for grief, for me, I feel grief in my heart. It's like almost a heaviness. I feel grief in my lungs and the way that I breathe. And then in my shoulders, I feel like I can feel my shoulders go forward. And so what I would do with this is like, okay, I'm just going to sit with that. I'm not going to sit with it right now in front of you for a long period of time, right? But the technique is to say, hello, grief. I feel you. You're going to sit with the feeling, the sensations in it in your body, and you're going to connect into the earth, and you're just going to be a witnessing consciousness and notice that it's there. Feel the grief as a sensation. Let it be there. This is key. We often think, oh no, I'm experiencing grief, or I'm experiencing something heavy. I have to get it out or get it away because I don't want to create more of it, because I'm wrong for feeling it. No, feel it as sensation, not as the thought, not as the thing that's creating the grief. Because if you think of the story of the grief, it's going to create more grief because you're unleashing that biochemical reaction every time that you think that thing. So out of the head, out of the story, directly into sensation. Then as you listen, it'll start to shift. It may take a little while, but it will start to move. What's happening if we don't do this? So let's say And I'm thinking of grief in terms of, so, and I've just started sharing stuff from like my personal life. I tend to be pretty private, but my dad passed when I was in my mid 20s. And I swear it took me a year to even sit with grief. So there can be some strategy or technique of the nervous system to not let us feel everything at once because it might be too much and it might overwhelm the body. But did that grief go away because I wasn't paying attention to it? No, it was there. It was waiting for me to feel it, to listen to it, to hear it. So think of yourself as sitting inside with your warm cup of tea and you're by your fireplace and you have certain emotions outside and it's cold outside. And let's say grief is out there and anger out there and fear. So they're all outside and you locked them outside. Like, you cannot come in here to my cozy little solo tea party. You're not welcome here. Well, they're cold and they want to be let inside. They want to at least be warm, at least be welcome. So they start to knock on the door and they start to get really loud because they know that they're going to freeze out. And so they start to pound and even yell. And you can pretend to enjoy your tea. You can pretend to enjoy the fireplace, but you hear them. They're influencing your peace. They're influencing your embodiment. You can't quite relax because they're making noise. You're aware of them. And the more you keep them out, the more they pound on that door. So, what I'm inviting you to do here, because what this does, then we're manifesting. So, you're sitting there, you're meditating, and you're trying to call in all the things that you want in your life, all the beautiful things. You're trying to call in abundance, your dream relationship, you're trying to call in your dream home, but your psyche keeps listening to these emotions, these things that you've locked outside in the cold. So it's influencing your beingness. You're trying to have this magnetic aura, you're trying to drop into the present moment, and you think you've locked them out. You think that they're not a part of your vibration, but they are. So, what I'm inviting you to do is to open the door, welcome them in, breathe, let them sit by the fireplace and warm up, have your cup of tea, and listen to them. Now, maybe it's one at a time because all of them would be really overwhelming. And then we would have a system shutdown and that wouldn't be good. But like one at a time, invite them in for tea, calm your body, observe them in sensation form. In this metaphor, they would be talking to you, right? Like a dear friend, but listen to what they're saying. And then they'll probably take a nap or go into the other room and sleep or go sit in the corner and read a book on their own. They're not going to be so loud because they're invited in to your experience and they're a part of you. That's just the way that it is. This is exactly what I needed right here, right now. Perfect timing. Thank you. You're so welcome. It's been on my heart to share this because I just feel this dissonance. And maybe some of it's because I'm 8 months postpartum and the postpartum waves, the hormonal waves are just like up and down. And for me, they have been at least. And I know kind of in the lows, I'm like, where's the content around those experiences? Because as a new mom, you really only see like the highs of having a new baby, and there's so many, they're amazing. But I think that this conversation around the sacredness of the valleys, like how beautiful is a valley in a mountain range? And yes, a peak is really beautiful too. But the valley, you can look up and see the vast sky. You feel snug in between the landscape. So if we can start to reframe the peaks and the valleys as having a judgment about them and just not get stuck in the valley, but move through it, then it's going to be a little easier with life. And this pattern has come up in my clients several times where they're just like, feel like something's off or wrong if they're having a low. Like nothing's wrong with you, love. Oftentimes they're in the winter season of their menstrual cycle. So they're just in the energy of purging and letting go and falling away. And then spring comes, the follicular phase, and then they're putting back the pieces together. So it's just, we can learn to ride our cycles, and we don't want to code into our belief system that like for every high we have to have a low, but it just to think we're never going to have a winter or we're never going to feel anger again or we're never going to, it's not, I don't think it's realistic. And also, I'm a being that loves to be in sync with nature, and it's just not the natural way. I'm in the midst of doing Debbie Ford's 21-day consciousness cleanse. She shows how to find the gifts within the unpleasant emotions and memories. Yes, I love how you said unpleasant. Good job. Release them and use the gifts as creative fuel. Beautiful. And remember that releasing, we think it's push away, we think it's throw out the window, we think it's shut out. The releasing is actually an inviting in, it's a listening. And in the listening, the noise is released, the resistance is released. I'm so glad you're loving this, Amber. Yeah, feel free to ask questions, everyone. I don't have a really strong script or anything today. I'm just kind of riffing from my heart because I really wanted to talk about this. And I will say this is a big part of the work that I do with my clients. I'm really, really comfortable with the winters. So I'm not saying that like I draw out the winters in you when you work with me, but I have a heart and a space for them. So if you come to a session and a ton of grief came up for you or a ton of fear came up for you that week, I want you to share that with me and I will lovingly witness it for you. So I will be in there at the fireplace having a cup of tea with you and we'll invite that in and we'll sit together and it's alchemized even faster in that way. So the prompt I have for you all is what have you locked outside in the cold? Like what have you shoved out the door because you don't want to experience it? This could be a specific situation, right? That might come into your mind, or a relationship, or a memory. But then go a little bit deeper and see what that mental projection, what it spurs in your body, what sensations, what emotions. And feel free to share if you'd like to in the chat, in the comments. But I just really invite you to let that in. I have a 3 months, I call it dreamy manifestation coaching program that I love to highlight in the new year because it's such a beautiful time to offer it. A lot of people are setting their intentions for the new year. My approach to manifestation is a very internal, dreamy process. I do a lot of yoga and visualization and embodiment. I do a lot of spirit prayer. I do a lot of nervous system care in tandem with the manifestation process. I believe that what we want, what our desires, the desires that we want come from our heart, not from our head. So when we connect into the heart, then our desires are made clear to us. And when we take care of the nervous system, when we tend to the shadows, when we tend to the negative beliefs, then that desire just comes forth into reality in a really easeful way. That's my approach. I have linked that course or that program up at the top of this chat. So definitely check it out. Hit the application button if you are interested. I would love to walk you through this process, through your own cycles. I can help you create clarity on what you want to create. If you already have that clarity, I can help you usher that thing into physical reality, into physical form, whatever it is. Definitely, if you're an entrepreneur in the self-development world, I can really, really help you. But I've helped all sorts of entrepreneurs, people in all sorts of career paths, because you know what you need. And my job is to hold space for you to connect to your own process and your unique wisdom. Your live stream is coming at me for the perfect time. Thank you for this. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So What happens when we start to invite these shadows, these things that we don't want to feel into our experience, into our reality? Our energy starts to lighten up. And feminine energy is an energy of lightness, play, delight. So you can be practicing the embodiment of play and delight and have this light energy, but those shadows, those feelings are screaming at the door of your aura, and people feel them when you walk into a room. Not just the energy, but they can feel your embodiment. They can feel the narrowing of the eyes because you have fear, the clenching of the jaw and the subconscious, or the tightening of the stomach. You'll be on a date and you're doing your best to feel into this flowy energy, but your body doesn't feel safe because you're pretending to feel safe, but you actually don't feel safe. So you work with safety, you work with your fear, you work with your nervous system, you move through that stuff, through the shadows, and they're sacred. They're beautiful. A lot of this stuff too that we're carrying, it's not ours, it's from our lineage. We can be I'm learning so much, and I can't speak intelligently to this right now because I'm in the process of absorbing, but about what we get passed down from our ancestors into our genes. Like, it blows my mind. Our nervous system is so influenced by our ancestral lineage. It's so influenced by how we were carried in our mother's womb. It's so influenced by those first few months and years of our life. So, a lot of these things that we're feeling or experiencing may have nothing to do with our direct life right now as we know it. And clearing it is doing a great, great service to your kids, to your grandkids, the lineage coming from you. So if there's, otherwise, you're just passing it on. You're continuing to repress it and you're continuing to pass it on. So moving through it is it's not just for you to feel safer and more easeful and create the thing that you want to create. Like, yes, that's just frosting on the cake, in my opinion. The even more exciting thing is that you're changing your nervous system and your DNA and your genes for your future generations that come from you. What a gift. What a gift. Can you feel my mama energy coming in right now? I learn about things as I go through them. So I've just been doing so much reading and listening about epigenetics and ancestral inheritance and things like this. Amber, not having my biological father in my life and being in foster care the first 12 years of my life, like 30 different homes, I want to release that. Oh, my love, I did not know had written that when I just shared what I shared. Oh, I feel you. I can't resonate with you because I didn't have that experience, but I can like feel that in my heart for you. And this is something where you can sit with that little you. And you know what really has helped me is EMDR. Look it up if you haven't tried it yet. EMDR. You can go into these memories that you have and you can do binaural stimulation of your brain and recode those memories. It really works well with the subconscious and the nervous system. So I would seek outside support for that. So like an EMDR therapist, a somatic experience practitioner, and have someone who can hold that little you with you and love her up and help her bring a feeling of consistency and steadiness and foundation, and practice that embodiment and that emotion as much as you can. Like scoop up that little one and just hold her skin to skin and feel her. And it's, I'm glad you brought this up because it is important to reflect on the first. I mean, if you can, ask your mother her birth story, ask her how she was in her pregnancy. You can ask what it was like in the early days of postpartum. You could ask your parents what your first years were like, and it's going to inform a lot. Like asking, how was your pregnancy? How was your nervous system? How were your emotions? What did you do to take care of yourself and be, timid, like not timid, be like gentle about this, right? It's not like an interrogation. It's a curiosity. Like you want to hear this experience, but I don't know, I feel like it'll light up a lot for you and like how you might be who you are. From 0 to 7, we're in a lower brainwave frequency. So that means that it's called theta, and we're literally in a state of hypnosis, meaning we don't have a discerning mind. We can't decide, what's right, what's wrong, what's for us, what's not for us, what's true, what's not true. So we're soaking everything up like a sponge. So that means that, I mean, think about that. That's 7 years. Your environment in those 7 years is massive in forming your brain now. And this is why I invite clients, I invite those I work with to get out of their head and into their heart, into their body when they're reflecting on what they want. Because if they're in their head, they're operating in that wiring that comes from family, comes from society, that comes from those messages we picked up. They may serve us depending on what that environment was like, but your truth lives in your heart, and your heart can alchemize these shadows, these things that are hard to feel. Okay. Feel free to ask some questions. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up soon. Yes, I didn't want to pass that stuff on to my children. So I've done so much inner work, and gave my children a loving family. That is so beautiful. Good for you. And this inner work is not always easy. It's not. But what a relief to feel these things that we've tried to shut out, to feel them embraced in and to lighten because of it. It's like, oh, okay, that's how I let go, is I invite in. It's counterintuitive to what we would think. There's a really good book. I've mentioned it several times. It's called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. He also has one, Power versus Force, and he goes through the different emotions and he assigns a vibration pattern to them. So he uses kinesiology to code each emotion with a certain resonance or attractor pattern frequency of the aura. So he goes from like fear. I think the lowest one is shame. It's the lowest frequency emotion. And then you can go to apathy. I think it's fear next, and anger. Then you go to courage, and you go to peace, and you go to love. So all of these emotions have a different resonance about them. And he shares that the key to moving up this scale is to feeling the emotion fully as it is, as sensation, not the story behind it, just to feel it and say, hi, you're the here. You can be here. I'm listening. And then it moves. And then you might start experiencing the next one, and then you feel it and it moves. And there's nothing wrong or bad about experiencing these things. You just feel them. And when you feel them, they lift. And then you can feel the things you want to feel, love and peace. Shadow work can feel painful at times, but it feels so freeing afterwards. It really does. It's a cliche, but true. What we resist will persist. Yes, what we resist will persist. And like I said, some people, I know them in my life, they're addicted to the shadow work. They're addicted to staying in the stories of the shadows. They're addicted to the darkness. They're addicted to the apathy. They're addicted to the fear. Fear can be really addicting, actually. Gives you a huge adrenaline rush. When your nervous system is activated, you get a release of endorphins. You get a release of dopamine in the brain to increase psychomotor speed. Like stress and fear activates energy, and energy can feel really good. So when you're feeling fear, even if it's jittery fear, even if it's that darting fear, you have energy, you can be mobile. So I know people who are addicted to fear. That's what they're used to. So yes, in those cases, shift your attention, shift your focus towards, we'll feel the fear, right? But like, this is where those positive affirmations can come in of just like, okay, I'm going to repeat these words, repeat my attention somewhere else. I'm going to get myself out of this loop of identifying my personality and my embodiment as one with fear or one with apathy. Okay, thank you. I love that. I'm 41 and have done so much learning about changing the brain. Amazing. Our brains are plastic. Our brains can rewire. Like, my loves, you are not stuck with this way of thinking. It's helpful to do, I mean, it's essential to do inner work. It's helpful to do it in community to get other perspectives. It's helpful to hire coaches who can, who have the codes, who have the neural wiring to get the thing that you want to get. All these things are helpful, but create that space in your brain to rewire. If you keep thinking in the same rigid way every year as you get older, it's going to be harder to rewire. It's always possible. But if you keep that learner's mindset, that growth mindset, and you keep adding new neural pathways and losing others and shifting your brain it will be this beautiful mosaic of just this interactive art piece, right? And I hope that gives you all hope too. Like, but the question is how to shift that wiring, right? That's where I help clients. Love your voice and soothingness. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. It's taken me a long time to share my voice. Talk about fear. You know, I was scared. I was scared to be seen on YouTube. I was scared I would say the wrong thing. And honestly, I just started sharing just off of the whim on YouTube live recently. Like, I have like 4 bullet points for this talk, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to connect to my heart and feel into my heart and share from my heart and see what happens. And hello, fear, I see you here. I feel you, but I'm going to do it anyways because I trust my heart. So I didn't resist the fear. I felt it. I said hello. It sat down. It welcomed in. And now it's sitting in the corner. And here I am. Seeing unpleasant emotions and experiences as messengers allows me to feel gratitude, oddly enough, for what they bring. I save energy too, because they can't turn into grudges, resentments, etc. Exactly. Feel them as they come up. Say hello. And even if you can't see them as gratitude, like if you're tuning into this, you're like, there's no way I can see this as something I'm grateful for. See it as neutral. It just is what it is. High fear, high jealousy, high anger, hello apathy, hello grief, hello shame. Just see it neutral. You don't even have to like it. You don't even have to cultivate gratitude for it. But don't judge it as bad. It's part of you. You're human. Yes, I love frequencies, energies, but I've not read that book. And yes, I'm creating a new story for years. Love it. I'm always creating a new story. I'm always becoming someone new. I feel like I've become at least 2 new people in the past 2 years. Like, it's been really, really fast for me. And this is something, I don't go online and share my shadows. I actually, because they're dark and they're sacred, and like I like to keep them private, especially because they feel vulnerable. So maybe I'm part of that where I'm only sharing the light and the bright. But I have shadows. I have days that I'm down. I feel all those things I just named, And do I feel an overarching sense of gratitude for my life? 100%. Do I have consciousness during those moments that I feel those things? Yes, I'm not swept away in them. And that's where this work makes things easier because you can have consciousness during it, see it, not identify with it, watch it move through. But I just want to let you all know, like, yes, I'm in the self-development world. I'm science and magic. I'm work deliciously, feminine embodiment, all of these things. But I feel these emotions too. I have winters, I have valleys, and you most likely do too. And there's nothing wrong with feeling them. In fact, feeling them will help to alchemize them and they'll help you to manifest the things that you want to manifest. So that's all that I have for you today. I am going to go live again twice this week. So definitely hit the bell so that you'll be notified. Please give this video a like and check out my 3-month coaching program. Also, I'm on Threads now, that Instagram platform. It's like Twitter or something, but like different through Instagram. Anyways, I'm on that as Science and Magic with Amanda. I have an Instagram broadcast channel, so I'm trying to share content a little bit more regularly now that I'm kind of getting into a rhythm with my baby. Um, no promises. I kind of just flow. He's my priority. So, but I am going to try to share a bit more regularly. I'm going to try to use my text list more. For those of you on my text list, I haven't really used that much in the past year, to be honest. But thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and participating in the chat. And I am so excited to see you in the next stream. Bye.